Ladies and gentlemen, this is huge. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. To my super chat, thank you. Go to H.A. Goodman's other channel right after this for a synopsis of this live stream. NBC News. Years back, intelligence chief, actually it's John Brennan. So intelligence chief James Clapper's online personal accounts hacked, and also CIA director John Brennan's account apparently also hacked. NBC News, according to The Guardian. This is an article in The Guardian right here. The CIA director's personal email account was hacked, just like John Brennan's accounts were allegedly hacked, which was part of the 18-count indictment. So in addition to the ODNI information that was declassified that showed John Brennan committed perjury, conspiracy statutes, a whole bunch of things he broke, John Brennan lied and denied using the dossier. He's referenced 12 times in this ODNI press release. Just like Bolton, which we'll hear about in a second, the Guardian article from 9 years ago talks about a potentially classified email. Review copy, do not retain. Apparently, potentially, like the Honorable James Comey says, potentially, on his private email. The embarrassing leak includes a questionnaire for officials' security clearance marked review copy, do not retain. Other documents allegedly hacked within John O'Brennan's personal emails include other documents included in an early version of the Limitations on Interrogation Techniques Act of 2008. So this is interesting. The sensitivity of the material account notwithstanding that. Okay. So this is very similar to the indictment, and you'll hear about that in a second, but the indictment of, and you'll hear the legal analysis in a second, top secret, top secret, top secret, top secret, top secret, all of the different documents that Bolton allegedly shared via email and other means. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is huge. Bolton's emails were allegedly hacked as he was either storing or sending classified data. According to the Guardian article, there might have been classified data. I think a review copy, do not retain, it's pretty obvious that there's some level of classification when John O'Brennan's email account, like Bolton's email account, was allegedly hacked. Hit subscribe. Let's get started. The third indictment. Bolton faces 18 counts. John O'Brennan almost certainly will be indicted under the same, utilizing the same Espionage Act statutes or conspiracy statutes. Check this out, ladies and gentlemen.
Former Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton was indicted by a federal grand jury in Maryland. Bolton facing 8 counts of transmission of national defense information, 10 counts of retention of national defense information. Now, the indictment says Bolton illegally shared classified material with 2 relatives and stored classified information inside his personal email account. That email account was later allegedly hacked by Iran, exposing, of course, our nation's sensitive secrets to a major adversary. Now, according to Fox News Digital, a probe into Bolton's mishandling
and John O'Brennan's emails, according to The Guardian, according to NBC News, were also hacked. So tell me the difference between John Brennan and John Bolton. Is there a difference between the indictment of Bolton and the upcoming indictment, potential arrest of Brennan? Tell me the difference if there is. Both of them had private emails that were hacked allegedly, and both of them allegedly stored classified data within their private emails and sent the classified data. So they were hacked, potentially, and they sent classified data, potentially, via email.
Handling of classified information started years ago, but was later shut down by the Biden administration for, quote, political reasons. And then he went on, became one of the biggest Trump haters out there. Bolton has hired a lawyer who turns out to be none other, and he's a good lawyer, Abby Lowell. In a statement, Lowell says Bolton was just keeping a diary like anyone else would.
You cannot keep a diary if you are privy to or you're given classified and top secret intelligence. That's not only stupid, it's potentially illegal. You can't simply keep a diary when you're given classified data and top secret or special access program intelligence or whatever classification Bolton was given for so many years. He could easily in his diary say, yes, Trump was upset that day. And in his mind, not allude to any classified data, but a foreign adversary could say, okay, why was he upset that day? What took place? What took place prior to him being upset? And derive information that way.
And that none of that information was classified. In a statement of his own, John Bolton said he is dedicated as a public servant who's looking forward to the legal fight over these charges. Here with an analysis, Fox News contributor Jonathan Turley and the author of The Color of Death. I never knew he had this dark a soul. But I mean, this is deep, and it is dark, and it is a page turner. He's the host of Sunday Night in America, Trey Gowdy. Trey, we'll start with you. Let's look at this case. These charges are real. We knew this was an issue when he was writing his book. I think it was Joyce Lambert, the judge, that chastised him for wanting to put this information in her book, right?
Sean, I cannot tell you and your viewers how serious the information that John Bolton both disseminated to his wife and daughter, that's who the unindicted co-conspirators are, and retained. It is the gravest secrets that this country has. It's the kind of information that gets people killed. Millions of documents over years, and he's out there lecturing, whether it's Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, or anyone else. There are so many clips in this indictment of him having notice and knowledge of how to handle material. All the while he was breaking it. I cannot stress to you the job that Kash Patel and John Lee Ratcliffe did in bringing this case to indictment. The gravest possible danger could have been done to this country, and may well have been done because Iran accessed his email at his home. This is very, very serious.
Now, you know, as I look at these, Jonathan Turley, either Letitia James said that this home in Virginia was her primary residence or not, and said it on multiple occasions and put it in documents. Either John Bolton had this information or he didn't have this information. He shared this information or he didn't. They seem kind of cut and dry. The real charges against Comey, unfortunately, I felt the statute of limitations had run out. Let's get your thoughts.
No, they are cut and dry. As a longtime criminal defense attorney, I got to tell you, 18 counts of this kind really concentrates the mind, because the jurors tend to look at this as a very simple question. Did he have classified information? Did he mishandle it?
The alleged hacking of his email by an adversary is very similar to the indictment of Bolton. Could be the same indictment upcoming of James Clapper and John Brennan. If, for example, they had classified data within their email accounts, and the Guardian article right here, again points to one of Brennan's alleged emails as review copy, do not retain. So you do the math on that. If Bolton is getting indicted, it's almost for that, for his emails being hacked and classified data being forwarded or emailed to other people. Brennan is almost certainly going to be indicted under the same statutes with the same type of indictment because he used private email. He likely, almost certainly, had classified data in the private email. The difference is that Hillary Clinton had servers 10 times worse. She was running servers connected to government servers and somehow transferred classified data, top secret intelligence, from the U.S. government servers onto her 2010 BlackBerry phone, which is impossible to do from a cybersecurity perspective, and almost certainly, well, it's illegal. It's 100% illegal.
And two arguments will not work in that courtroom. One is that this is all old classified information. It doesn't matter if it's old or brand new. If it's still classified, you violate the statute. The other argument is that everyone does this, that this is, as Abby said, everyone has diaries. Well, that's not going to fly either in that courtroom. I mean, he's going to try, just as Comey's going to try and James is going to try, to bring up a vindictive prosecution claim. Generally, courts don't, and also a selective prosecution, so both of those. Generally, courts do not go for those. If you have a viable criminal case that comes out of a grand jury, they tend not to want to look at motivations. This indictment looks pretty serious. I mean, the level of classification is very high, but also the fact that he was repeatedly warned. He was in this real battle with the government over his book, and he basically didn't yield to them. And then finally, you have that decision by Lamberth where he said, look, I can't force all these books to be destroyed. But he said, you really did undermine national security here.
So here is the original judge's order, his decision. Is the government likely to succeed on the merits? Yes. Bolton disputes that his book contains any such classified information and emphasizes his months-long compliance with the publication review process. He bristles at the mixed messages sent by publication review personnel and questions the motives of intelligence officers. Bolton could have sued the government and sought relief in court. Instead, he opted out of the review process before its conclusion. Unilateral fast-tracking carried the benefit of publicity and sales and the cost of substantial risk exposure. This was Bolton's bet. If he is right and the book does not contain classified information, he keeps the upside mentioned above. If he is wrong, he stands to lose profits from the book deal, exposes himself to criminal liability, and imperils national security. Bolton was wrong. This is the judge's the federal judge's viewpoint in 2020. Okay? And so Bolton is the blueprint for the upcoming indictment, almost certainly, of Brennan, Clapper, and all the rest. Of course, if they had emails, and if they had private emails, and they were storing classified intelligence or data or sensitive secrets, and their emails were hacked, which is what took place with Brennan and Clapper, it's the same indictment.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to ask you both an exit question. Trey, how does this play out?
He is convicted and he spends the remainder of his natural life in the custody of the Federal Bureau of Prisons.
Wow. That's a prediction. How about Letitia James, as long as you're dispelling all this good news for people that believe in justice?
Well, I think the facts in Bolton's case are stronger than the other two.
Okay. Jonathan, what do you think?
I think that I'd like Trey to pick my lottery numbers for next week because that's the certainty that I lack. Look, this is a blue state. It's a good jury pool. Really for Bolton. I think that the odds still favor the government in these.
So there will be a conviction. There'll be a conviction. Because even if it's a blue state, the precedent, there's already precedent. So there's a conviction there. With Brennan and Clapper and Comey, this type of thing is added on to the or could be part of the conspiracy statutes. So Bolton was not as integral in the Trump-Russia hoax, Russiagate, all that nonsense. He was just like one of the barnacles on the ship called Russiagate.
National Security Advisor John Bolton is expected to surrender today after being indicted on 18 charges related to mishandling of classified documents. Bolton responded to the indictment saying, quote, "I have devoted my life to America's foreign policy and national security. I would never compromise those goals. I tried to do that during my tenure in the first Trump administration, but resigned when it became impossible to do so. These charges are not just about his focus on me or my diaries, but his intensive effort to intimidate his opponents." Fox News contributor and George Washington University law professor Jonathan Turley joins us now. Professor, thanks so much for joining the program. I just want to go into some of the documents that he had. So there was some info on future attacks, foreign intel sharing, adversary covert action, sensitive human intel sources, and covert operations.
Even if it's in a blue state with liberal jurors, they're still going to be faced with the reality that this was classified information that Bolton had no right to either put in his book or to share with anyone else, or to put on email. So he didn't even wait for the review process to finish with the book, and then he allegedly put classified intelligence on private email. Again, Clinton had servers, which is the greatest cybersecurity debacle of all time. All of them, Clinton, Bolton, Clapper, Brennan, were allegedly hacked.
In assessments, just face value. You know, you can talk about political targeting and all of that, but that is damning evidence from the Bureau.
It's very damning, and we still have to learn about the timeline of when this information was transmitted. But certainly this information is classified at the highest levels because this is information that get people killed. I mean, this is the type of information that, if it gets out, can reveal sources and methods that represent really threatening consequences for national security. And keep in mind that in an earlier case, a federal judge said that he could not force Bolton to bring back and destroy all of the books that he had published with this company. But he said, you did undermine national security. This book does that. And so that's sort of the context here. The other thing about this, Lawrence, is that this was a long-standing series of objections. He was investigated during the Biden administration before that was scuttled. But he had basically defied a lot of the objections from the intelligence community. And now this indictment says that he was sending this information to what appears to be his wife and daughter, who of course have no clearances, and that it might have even been hacked by the Iranian government or its associates.
I know it's not necessary to improve
Any government official using a private email, especially servers, okay, is going to be hacked by another adversary. You'd have to be a complete imbecile if you are a person like Bolton or Hillary Clinton or Clapper or Brennan who use private email and potentially put classified data. Clinton had top secret intelligence on servers that were outside of the United States government. Gee, you think maybe adversarial countries might have possibly hacked? Yeah, probably, almost certainly.
To prove intent. But it does make it more difficult for him that they warned him before he decided to do this, and yet he kind of scuffed at it and proceeded. I want to go to his comments back in January 2023. This is what he had to say about handling classified documents. Let's watch it.
It sets a bad example for the thousands of other people in the federal bureaucracy who have security clearances, because if the people at the top can be casual about it and then get away with it, that is not a good lesson to teach.
It's like one of those moments, the audacity.
Yet another reason why you should not always trust the experts blindly.
For me. Like, how could you be so strong? Right. And then we find all this information.
Well, you know, Lawrence, those clips, I can tell you as a criminal defense attorney, probably rule out his ever being put on the stand because while the court might not allow those to be admitted initially, they very well could be admitted to impeach him or rebut him. And I don't think he can take the risk because he looks like an utter hypocrite. I mean, this indictment really shows a level of casual treatment of intelligence information that's quite shocking. He comes across like a teenager in a chat room. I mean, he's sending this stuff by email after all the controversies that we have had for years about trying to secure this type of information. And Lawrence, there's two arguments here that will not work. One is, well, this is just old classified material. That doesn't fly. I mean, if the question is it classified or not? That's why jurors tend to view these as rather cut and dry questions. The other argument, which sort of was suggested by his counsel, is, well, everyone does this. This is just keeping a diary. That's not going to work either. No. You know, whether you transmit the document or the contents, it's classified and it's subject to these criminal laws.
And of course, the ambassador knows that the diaries are property of the U.S. government when there's intelligence on there as well, when you're taking those notes. I want to go to a more complicated case, and that's the domestic terrorism charges. Cameron Arnold, as well as Zachary Evers, they're part of Antifa. They're being charged with
So you can't use email or have a diary if you are given national security secrets. It's illegal to have a diary if you know that other countries could utilize your thoughts and derive classified information or put two and two together and get some semblance of what is classified. So, I mean, also you can't email classified information on private emails on a private email account.
John Bolton indicted on charges of mishandling classified information. Bolton responding to the allegation saying, quote, "I've become the latest target in weaponizing the Justice Department to charge those he," meaning Donald Trump, "deems to be his enemies. I look forward to the fight to defend my lawful conduct and to expose his abuse of power." Former DHS Deputy Assistant Secretary Jonathan Fahey joins me now. Jonathan, we got a couple things going on here. We have held documents and we have transmitted documents, meaning he took these allegedly inappropriately from the department or from where he was working, and then he disseminated it to people who shouldn't have it. Those include future attack intel, foreign intel sharing, adversaries' covert actions, sensitive human intel, and U.S. covert operations and assessments. How bad does this look for John Bolton?
This indictment looks far worse than I expected because there was all this talk that the indictment was coming yesterday, particularly, like you said, the transmission part of it, because he was transmitting classified documents on email to people that did not have clearances. I believe it was his wife and his daughter were the people receiving them over just a normal email. I think it was an AOL email. And the one thing that just shows how bad this was, his email got hacked by Iran, so we don't even know what Iran got or if anyone else got any of these things. So this is really bad.
And again, if you go to the Guardian article 10 years ago, the embarrassing leak includes a questionnaire for the official security clearance marked review copy, do not retain. That's allegedly on Brennan's personal account. Publication follows the hacking of John Brennan's email account on Monday. So that's 10 years ago. He also had an AOL account. They probably had they probably signed on to the AOL account, Bolton and Brennan, like in the late 90s, okay? Intelligence Chief's Clapper online personal account hacked. Brennan's account apparently also hacked. This is NBC News talking about Clapper, James Clapper, his personal email account hacked. So you have James Clapper, you have Hillary Clinton, you have John O'Brien, and you have Bolton, all of whom had emails that were allegedly hacked. Okay, and all of whom utilized private email accounts and allegedly sent classified data on private email accounts. 10 billion times worse than anything Trump was accused of that was fabricated.
It shows how important it is to safeguard classified materials, and it's so ironic that John Bolton was out there front and center criticizing Donald Trump when the circumstances were so much different for Donald Trump, meaning so much worse for John Bolton, and he was doing this the whole time. And the other thing that I think is bad about it, the length of time that this was going on. It wasn't just like a one-off or something like that, or not that it would be excusable, but it would at least mitigate it. And then finally, this was all done to write a book. So he was ultimately going to profit or profited from retaining classified information and also probably from sharing it, getting feedback on his book, presumably. So all of this looks really, really bad for him. And it seems hard for him to say this is political. It would almost seem political not to charge this if what's on the face of the indictment is even close to what the facts turn out to be.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know what the defense is because you have a book that has the information. I mean, that is the worst damning piece of evidence against you, but we'll see how it all plays out in a court. Speaking of DOJ action, they brought their first terrorism charges against
Story tonight, former Trump administration National Security Advisor John Bolton is facing federal charges over alleged mishandling of classified information. The indictment was handed down a short time ago. Correspondent David Spunt has breaking details tonight. Good evening, David.
John, good evening. Or Brett, good evening.
Again, this is The Blueprint, and hit subscribe to this channel if you're new. Go to H.A. Goodman's other channel. It's in the description right after this live stream for a synopsis of the live stream. But this isn't rocket science. This has been happening for the past 10 years. Like I said, this is the Guardian article and review copy. Do not retain potential classified document on John O'Brennan's email. Brennan and Clapper's emails were hacked. Hillary Clinton's servers were almost certainly hacked, according to James Comey. Why would you assume that they weren't hacked if you have classified data on servers or on private email accounts? It's not only illegal and easy to prove, easy to convict, and prison time, it also harms national security. And soldiers, sailors, and they've all been imprisoned a year or more away from their families for far less than what Bolton's being accused of.
Former Ambassador John Bolton, that's why I said John, facing these 18 counts in this indictment after a Maryland grand jury decided he should face charges related to his alleged retention and transmission of classified documents. His own attorney, Brett, admitted that he kept some of these classified documents. Bolton charged not only with keeping top secret classified information, but sharing it with family members. The Justice Department says Bolton sent diary-like entries about his workdays at the White House and shared information classified up to the top secret SCI level, the highest level, and share them on messaging apps and personal AOL and Google email accounts. Prosecutors, Brett, seen leaving the federal court after the indictment, have been probing Bolton since the Biden administration. President Trump reacting in real time to the indictment from the Oval Office, where Bolton used to frequent.
I think he's a bad guy. Yeah, he's a bad guy. It's too bad, but that's the way it goes. That's the way it goes, right? That's the way it goes.
We were there as FBI agents raided Bolton's Maryland home and Washington, D.C. office in August. Agents were looking for classified documents. His attorney, Abby Lowell, telling Fox News the following: just within the last half an hour, these charges stem from portions of Bolton's personal diaries over his 45-year career, records that are unclassified, shared only with his immediate family.
Why would you have diaries if you are privy to national security secrets? Does that make any sense? to the 800, 700 people watching. Does that make any sense? Why would you write a diary? Dear diary, today we talked about nuclear secrets. Oh, this isn't classified, is it? What kind of logic? What kind of logic? This is like the most absurd thing you've ever heard in your life. Who has diaries? It's almost like if a person's a double agent. I'm not accusing Bolton of this. I'm not accusing Bolton of being a double agent, okay, or a spy or a traitor or anything, okay? I am not accusing. He's just a terrible foreign policy hawk that never saw a war he didn't like, but I'm not accusing him of this. But if you wanted to be a double agent or a spy of another country, you would then get a security clearance and write a diary. That's what would happen. Because you could derive information from the unclassified notes within a diary.
And known to the FBI as far back as 2021. Like many public officials throughout history, Bolton kept diaries. That is not a crime. We look forward to proving that once again, Ambassador Bolton did not unlawfully share or store any information. Here's Bolton, though, Brett, in 2023, responding to a question about FBI raids.
They did not prove anything. Bolton did not prove he was, innocent of anything. There was no trial and there was no indictment. And furthermore, the judge in 2020 said that he imperiled himself right here. That's Brennan. There's so many here, right here. It's right here. If he is right and the book does not contain classified information, he keeps the upside mentioned above. But if he is wrong, he stands to lose his profits from the book deal, expose himself to criminal liability, and imperils national security. Bolton was wrong. The conclusion of the judge 5 years ago was defendant Bolton has gambled with the national security of the United States. He has exposed his country to harm and himself to civil and potential criminal liability. But these facts do not control. Okay, so he has the judge denied the government's motion because the book was published. That's why. Okay? But he has exposed his country to harm and himself to civil and potential criminal liability. That was very prescient. That was written 5 years ago by the judge. So again, it's like complete nonsense.
It's on former President Trump's property and President Biden's Delaware home with classified documents. Watch.
It sets a bad example for the thousands of other people in the federal bureaucracy who have security clearances, because if the people at the top can be casual about it and then get away with it, that is not a good lesson to teach.
Bolton almost 3 years ago. No word yet, Brett, on his first court appearance.
Okay, we'll follow it. David, thanks.
Thanks.
Bolton was just indicted by a grand jury in Maryland. Do you have a reaction to that?
I didn't know that. You tell me for the first time, but I think he's, a bad person. I think he's a bad guy. Yeah, he's a bad guy. It's too bad, but that's the way it goes.
The case against him?
That's the way it goes, right? That's the way it goes. Will I what?
Have you reviewed the case against him?
No, I haven't. But I just think he's a bad person.
Fox News alert, President Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton, has been indicted. He's accused of mishandling classified documents. Let's go right to Fox News correspondent David Spunt with the details. David.
Hi, Will. This is breaking news out of Greenbelt, Maryland, federal court there. A federal grand jury has returned an indictment against former national security advisor John Bolton. But we want to be very careful. This has not been unsealed yet, so we don't know the names of the charges, specifically what charges he's facing, and we don't know how many counts he is facing yet. But we do know that this deals with...
Well, it was 18 counts, and 18 counts right here. You can see regarding top secret, reveals intelligence about future attack, secret, reveals liaison partner, top secret, reveals intelligence that a foreign adversary was planning. Okay. Top secret, reveals intelligence about an adversary's knowledge of planned U.S. actions. Oh, that's very good. Good at keeping secrets. Top secret, reveals intelligence on adversaries' leaders. This, could you imagine all of this? And these are the people who are adversaries of Trump. Top secret reveals intelligence concerning a foreign country's interactions with an adversary. And Trump had, if it's it's a stupid term, whataboutism, but it's called hypocrisy. But if you're saying Trump is you're a hypocrite because Trump had the same thing. No, he didn't. No, he didn't, because he was a president with the power to declassify. Bolton was not. He had no authority to declassify anything. Neither did Hillary Clinton or Biden. Furthermore, there was no top secret or class. They actually had to use folders. They literally brought folders to Mar-a-Lago and put the documents in a folder that said top secret, classified. But nobody knows exactly what the records were, just like nobody knows exactly what any president takes, whether it's Bush or President Obama. But let's continue. Top secret reveals covert actions by the U.S. government. Top secret reveals covert actions conducted by the U.S. government. Top secret reveals intelligence. So we can go on, all of this. Okay, and then this is in addition to the wonderful diaries. Dear diary, today, I mean, how do you not allude to classified data if you have a diary? And why on earth would you write a diary again if you were privy to classified and sensitive and, top secret intelligence?
Allegedly mishandling classified documents. His own attorney, Abby Lowell, who famously represented Hunter Biden, Bill Clinton, Jared Kushner in the past, put out a statement a couple of weeks ago when news was swirling that this may be happening, admitting that Bolton did have classified documents in his possession, but said that those were pre-cleared for the publication of his book. So not much information right now other than to tell you that former National Security Advisor John Bolton has been indicted for allegedly mishandling classified documents. I do want to point out, though, that on August 27th, while we were there as FBI agents raided his Maryland home and Washington, D.C. office, agents were looking for these classified documents. And again, Abby Lowell said many of these documents would be, and I want to read a statement here. You don't have it, but I'm just going to paraphrase it here. I'm going to actually read the quote. We're just not going to put up the quote. He said, quote, "These are the kinds of ordinary records, many of which are 20 years old or more, that would be kept by a 40-year-old career official who served at the State Department, an assistant attorney general, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, and the National Security Advisor." He said that these are dated with classification markings from 1998 to 2006. He says an objective and thorough review will show nothing inappropriate was stored or kept by Ambassador Bolton. So John Bolton indicted for allegedly mishandling classified documents, and he had said many times in the past during the raid on Mar-a-Lago or when classified documents were found at President Biden's home in Wilmington, Delaware. Remember, he had an investigation, too, for classified documents. Bolton criticized both those men, and he said, quote, "Because if the people at the top can be casual about it when they get away with it, that is not a good lesson to teach."
Again, the judge, years back, I mean, this is Brennan right here. And we can get to Brennan right now. But the judge years back said, conclusion, he has exposed his country to harm and himself to civil and potential criminal liability. Okay. Now we get to Brennan. Mentioned 13 different times. Brennan, in the ODNI report, had an email review copy, do not retain. Why would he have an email in a private account, the same type of AOL account? This is according to The Guardian, that was hacked, and it's the embarrassing leak includes a questionnaire for the official security clearance marked review copy, do not retain. That's just one potential email. But you have Clapper and you have Brennan's accounts hacked. All of the people who were against Trump doesn't use email. So you can't try to, say, oh, there's a thing. Like, no, it's not. Trump doesn't use email. He's smart enough not to use email, okay? Because all of it can be easily hacked. But this is where Brennan, this is a blueprint. The Bolton indictment is a blueprint for Brennan before the Russiagate statutes.
Story today, the FBI is set to investigate its former director, James Comey, and former CIA director, John Brennan, over their involvement in the Trump-Russia probe, according to sources at the Justice Department. Brennan is under investigation for lying to Congress, saying that he had nothing to do with the Steele dossier. Reports indicate that Brennan's top 2 CIA officers warned the director it's a conspiracy.
So quickly, here's the lie. Here's the actual lie right here.
Did you have evidence of a connection between the Trump campaign and Russian state actors?
As I said, Mr. Gowdy, I don't do evidence. And we were uncovering information and intelligence about interactions and contacts between U.S. persons and the Russians. And as we came upon that, we would share it with the Bureau.
Perjury, misleading Congress, lie. That's a lie by omission. And it's painting a tale, a fantasy, a story that the wonderful, morally superior, highly educated liberal Democrats, oh my God, they gobbled it up. They loved it. Really? Trump? And the Russians? They were so afraid of Hillary. That's why we lost.
I appreciate that you don't do evidence, Director Brennan. Unfortunately.
And he literally states he doesn't do evidence, which should tell you everything you need to know about Trump's adversaries.
That's what I do. That's the word we use. You use the word assessment. You use the word tradecraft. I use the word evidence. And the good news for me is lots of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle use the word evidence too. One of my colleagues said there is more than circumstantial evidence of collusion between the Russians and the Trump campaign. Now, there are only 2 types of evidence. There's circumstantial and direct. So if it's more than circumstantial, by necessity, it has to be direct. Those aren't my words. Those are the words of one of my colleagues on the other side of this very committee. Another Democrat colleague on the other side of this committee also used the word evidence, that he has seen evidence of collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians. And yet a third California Democrat said she had seen no evidence.
Who is sitting behind Trey Gowdy? In the chat, 1,000 plus people. Who's sitting behind Trey Gowdy? And you do the math. How many indictments you think are going to take place in the next 3-4 months?
Of collusion. So that's 3 different members of Congress from the same state using the same word, which is evidence. And that's the word that my fellow citizens understand, evidence. Assessment is your vernacular. Tradecraft is your vernacular. You and I both know what the word evidence means. And we're not getting into whether or not you corroborated, contradicted, examined, cross-examined. We're not getting into how you tested and probed the reliability of that evidence. It's a really simple question. Did evidence exist of collusion, coordination, conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russian state actors at the time you learned of 2016 efforts?
I encountered and am aware of information and intelligence that revealed contacts and interactions between Russian officials and U.S. persons involved in the Trump campaign that I was concerned about because of known Russian efforts to suborn such individuals. And it raised questions in my mind, again, whether or not the Russians were able to gain the cooperation of those individuals. I don't know whether or not such collusion, that's your term, such collusion existed.
Perjury. Perjury, lying under oath. He knew he was a CIA chief. He knew because we have all of the declassified evidence. He's mentioned in just this press release for the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, 12 times. 12 times Brennan lied, misled, overruled CIA, former other intelligence officials. John Brennan lied and denied using the dossier. Brennan refused to remove it. Okay, so he knew there was no collusion. He says he doesn't know. He didn't know. That's, again, trying to circumvent perjury. They're always trying to circumvent a perjury trap. He knew exactly there was no evidence of collusion. That's why he said he doesn't do evidence. But he is lying and misleading while at the same time trying to circumvent a perjury trap, which of course he gets himself into.
Said she had seen no evidence of collusion. So that's three different members of Congress from the same state using the same word, which is evidence. And that's the word that my fellow citizens understand, evidence. Assessment is your vernacular. Tradecraft is your vernacular. You and I both know what the word evidence means. And we're not getting into whether or not you corroborated, contradicted, examined, cross-examined. We're not getting into how you tested and probed the reliability of that evidence. It's a really simple question. Did evidence exist of collusion, coordination, conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russian state actors at the time you learned of 2016 efforts?
I encountered and am aware of information and intelligence that revealed contacts and interactions between Russian officials and U.S. persons involved in the Trump campaign that I was concerned about because of known Russian efforts to suborn such individuals. And it raised questions in my mind, again, whether or not the Russians were able to gain the cooperation of those individuals. I don't know whether or not such collusion, that's your term, such collusion existed. I don't know. But I know that there was a sufficient basis of information and intelligence that required further investigation by the Bureau to determine whether or not U.S. persons were actively conspiring, colluding with Russian officials.
Do you know the basis?
The CIA has more at its disposal to find out if there's any collusion, any money trail, any espionage, anything than the FBI does. Oftentimes, they just do things illegally. The FBI follows the law more so than the CIA, almost certainly. I'm speculating here. But that was a lie. That was all a lie. That was all perjury. Everything he just said was perjury. In addition to everything else he says throughout this, 2.5 hour testimony, 8 years ago. Okay, we're not even, the Bolton indictment with the email and the hacking of the email and potential classified data on the email, that's exactly what Brennan and others will almost certainly be indicted for before the statutes pertaining to Russiagate, which are conspiracy statutes. Let's listen to some more wonderful lies.
This is of that information that you share with the Bureau. I mean, what was the nature of the evidence?
I think, Mr. Gowdy, this committee has now been provided information that relates to that issue in terms of information that the agency shared with the Bureau. And that is something that is appropriately classified.
All right. And you learned that when? When in this chronology did you learn of the contacts between these official members of the Trump campaign, or because there's kind of a tripartite hierarchy. There's Trump himself, there are official members of the campaign, and then there are folks who represented themselves as being connected with him.
I'm not going to try to identify individuals nor try to parse it.
I don't want you to parse it. I just want you to identify the individuals. I don't want you to parse it.
I'm not going to identify the individuals because this is information that, again, is based on classified sources and intelligence.
Lie, under oath, perjury. It was based on the Steele dossier. And it was based on Brennan overruling prior intelligence that said there was no intelligence or evidence. That's why he kept saying there's no evidence. So the way Brennan and others, Comey, the way they speak is they lie overtly, and then they sprinkle some truth within the lies, or they lie by omission, sometimes lie overtly, almost always lie by omission, and then sprinkle some truth to evade a perjury trap. But we know from the declassified ODNI records, Brennan mischaracterized intelligence, misled lawmakers, overruled CIA officers, ordered the inclusion of substandard reporting, lied and denied using the dossier. And so Brennan stated in a memo, okay, this consensus, whatever. There was first of all, Russia invaded under Biden. Why on earth would they be scared or frightened of Democrats? The only people that use email to send classified data are Democrats. Also probably Republican, never Trump Republicans, almost certainly, or maybe even Trump Republicans, who knows? But all of the people that have been in the news the past 10 years pertaining to emails, whether it's Hillary Clinton or Biden's laptop or Brennan with his potentially classified email, the private email hack of Brennan and Clapper years back that the Guardian published, okay, and that NBC News talked about. All of these people are adversaries of Trump, and they all use either servers or private emails, and they all have a classified data breach leaking problem. And they all leak information, like Comey, who literally is on record stating he leaked information to start the Mueller probe.
Were they official members of the campaign?
I'm going to defer to current agency officials to be able to further provide to you information related to that. But my understanding is that this committee has access to the documents that we would have provided to the Bureau.
All right. Last question, because I'm out of time. We can use the word evidence. We both know what the other one's talking about. How did you test, probe, examine, cross-examine, otherwise test the reliability or believability, credibility of that evidence you uncovered?
So watch what he says here. It's actually beautiful and it's so beautiful. It's so, I shouldn't say beautiful. It's so amusing. You have to enjoy the acting. These people are like Sir Laurence Olivier. You have to appreciate not the sinister or diabolical element of this, but just the almost hilarious and amusing way that they lie overtly and still think that they're telling the truth, or still try to pretend and act like they're telling the truth.
I made sure that the components within CIA that have responsible for counterintelligence, cyber, and Russia were actively working to understand as much as possible about the reliability, accuracy of the information that they already collected and information that was available that needed further corroboration.
We'll come back to the next round.
He said nothing of substance. Nothing of substance there. Nothing. But it was just enough to mislead Congress, and it was still perjury. But let's continue. He utilized the Steele dossier. He knew, along with Comey, knew almost certainly the dossier was purchased by Hillary Clinton and the DNC. Imagine if Rudy Giuliani and Donald Trump purchased a dossier that said that Hillary or Harris or Biden or President Obama were in a Moscow hotel room enjoying something. They would never stand for it. MSNBC and CNN and the Washington Post and the New York Times would never stand for Rudy Giuliani and President Trump purchasing a dossier. But they did. That's what the Democrats did to Trump. So there you go.
But Brennan allegedly pushed hard for them to use the dossier as an argument in their report anyway. Now, as for Comey, reports say that he knew that the probe originally came from the Clinton campaign and still allegedly used it to both smear and investigate President Trump, a story that the mainstream media ran with for 2 years. Watch this.
This cloud about collusion with Russia will hang over him no matter where he stands.
It does look like he's listening to Putin more than he is American intelligence.
We're about to find out if the new president of our country is going to do what Russia wants. The presidency is effectively a Russian op.
The president is a Russian operative.
Amazing.
Brennan, Comey, Clapper, all of them, everyone involved in this sent the country into a decade of a fabricated Red Scare McCarthy era hoax, a myth. They were so, the wonderful morally superior Democrats were so obsessed with information that misinformation. They even had a disinformation governance board, Orwellian government agency that they wanted to implement. These are the wonderful non-despots and fascists and authoritarians. There definitely aren't those things, right? And they lied every second about Trump-Russia. Everything about Trump-Russia was a lie. Not one vote was altered, nor would anyone believe with a functioning brain cell that Russia would be afraid of Democrats. Russia invaded during President Obama. They invaded during Bush. They invaded during Biden. They didn't make a major invasion during Trump. Yet Trump was the operative of the other country. What about those other presidents? What about Biden? I thought Russia was so afraid of Biden and Democrats and Hillary. And so the thing is, it was all a grandiose lie, the definition of misinformation, and yet they spread it every single day with thousands and thousands and thousands of articles. And you just heard complete nonsense fomenting this zeitgeist, this hysteria among wonderful, morally superior, apoplectic, highly educated liberal Democrats.
Right. So White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt joined Primetime last night, saying the administration is now ready to prosecute the deep state. Watch this.
Both of these disgraceful individuals turned against our Constitution and our country. And I'm sure they did, in fact, lie to Congress. And it's up to the Department of Justice to investigate that and to prosecute them if they did. And what we have seen is corruption at the highest levels against President Trump. The deep state threw everything at him to prevent him from coming back to this big, beautiful White House behind me. And he prevailed.
All right. Emily, let me start with you. You go back and you look at the testimony of Brennan, the CIA director, repeatedly saying that he believed that the dossier should be part of the investigation and then shouldn't be part of it, depending on whether he was behind closed doors or in front of them, right? And that is the nexus, it looks like, that John Ratcliffe, the current CIA director, believes could prove that he was lying. He lied to Congress in a closed-door investigation. So where do you see this going?
I see there being clearly grounds for an investigation. And I actually see, if I have faith in anyone, it's this administration to see it fully through. Now, we know that Comey, too, downplayed the reliance on the dossier and overstated the cooperation. And then, as you just said, Brennan essentially said, oh, we didn't rely on the dossier at all for that intelligence community assessment. But I was so disheartened as an American to read what has now been declassified in that page-and-a-half footnote, for example, talking about that the good Americans at the CIA and other intelligence apparati that said, look, we have low confidence. There's not corroboration here. This doesn't pass muster. The credibility is poor. And yet to see that there was an insistence on including it in something that became paramount and drove a media just a vehicle, a public uproar vehicle that drove this narrative that was entirely false. It goes so much beyond politicization. But here legally, obviously, intent is key. Context matters. And precedent is real but rare. So I think, however, that the grounds, should all of these allegations prove to be true with all of these corroborations, which, again, with this declassified information, certainly resoundingly support that, and these guys have a lot to answer for, because it seems like, indeed, they knowingly lied before Congress.
You know.
A grand jury investigation.
So they definitely knowingly lied, and everything's going to be declassified. The issue with the Bolton indictments are a blueprint for lifelong bureaucrats given access to classified data using private email, which almost certainly implicates John Brennan. That's before the conspiracy statutes associated with Russiagate. Let's continue.
A grand jury investigation is now underway regarding the Trump-Russia hoax. The media enablers that peddled the lie for years, though, are circling the wagons.
This is extraordinarily stupid. It's extraordinarily stupid on so many counts. Barack Obama had nothing to do with this by anybody's accounts.
We're all for transparency on any potential corruption, right? But this is something that has...
Except he was president when it happened, and I do believe, though, I've told everyone, I think that President Obama is actually helping President Trump for a number of reasons. Number one, he gets full control of the Democratic Party from the I'm with her crowd. Number two, because he evades criminal liability.
It's been combed over for a decade now.
I think they're trying to create the appearance of progress in this investigation without actually making any progress.
They all did their job, right? For the 4 years, 5 years. Meanwhile, President Trump, he's awaiting answers.
I have nothing to do. Pam is doing a great job. I have nothing to do with it. I will tell you this. They deserve it. I was happy to hear it. I actually read it just like you did. I have nothing to do with it.
Here with reaction is Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence. Director Gabbard, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Laura.
There's a report tonight from the Federalist that the DOJ is actually asking you for more documents in its grand jury probe. Is that true? And what are they asking for now?
That is true, Laura, and I just want to point out how important this is, that Attorney General Pam Bondi, through the Department of Justice, is taking this necessary first step toward accountability, which is essential for the American people to begin to have any kind of trust in the integrity of our democratic republic. I met with the Department of Justice prosecutors today, and yes, they are committed to leaving no stone unturned as they conduct this grand jury investigation and find the truth. Obviously, we've already handed over the documents that we've declassified and released publicly over the last few weeks. They have more questions, and they're going to be really taking a deep dive into this, again, looking everywhere to find the truth and conduct this very serious investigation.
You heard the media reaction, and a lot of these same people were just buying lock, stock, and barrel what was sold to them during the 2016 election. But they're essentially saying, this is all old news. This is such a stupid political move on their part. Into that, you say?
They are using the same old tactic that the deep state's propaganda arm in the media uses. Whenever they come across something that is true and that doesn't go along with whatever their narrative is that they're trying to shove down the throats of the American people, they first usually ignore it, as they did when I first released these documents a couple of weeks ago. They tried to ignore it.
And these are the documents right here. These are the documents. And this is not even all. This is just the press release. The actual declassified documents, you can go to DNI. You could look it up. But it's all here. All the lies, all the criminal, the lying on oath, perjury, it's all there. Declassified by Tulsi Gabbard.
When they realized that they weren't going to get away with this, that this story was going to continue breathing life, we continued releasing new documents, then they decided, oh, we'll take this approach of say, oh, this is nothing. There's nothing really to see here. This is bizarre. This is a conspiracy. These are the things that they do over and over and over again. And the next step they will take when they feel that they are not succeeding in getting rid of this truth that we have uncovered for the American people, then they will go down the route of we must destroy and smear and attack the credibility of those who are delivering the truth to the American people. They've done this to President Trump. They've done this to me. They've done this to so many different people, once again, who are trying to tell the American people the truth and expose these people, many of whom you just showed, for who they are as the propaganda arm of the deep state. which would have no power and no influence if they weren't able to feed their lies into a willing spokesperson through the propaganda media.
Now, Director, you said there was irrefutable evidence that Obama was the mastermind of this intelligence manipulation and the perpetuation of the Russia hoax.
So this is President Trump, in my view, okay? This is part of a negotiating tactic. President Trump wants President Obama to know, even though they're part of the same club, only 47 presidents in the history of our country, of the world, President Obama and President Trump will be spoken about, like every president, hundreds and hundreds of years from now. They're part of a club that, you have to be president to get into. They're friends. They're not adversaries, really. They're actual friends. You saw them during the funeral of Jimmy Carter. We've played that video. They're talking. They're laughing. They're sitting next to each other. President Obama and President Trump are friends. That being said, Trump knows that Obama was president and allowed all of this to take place and was at the very beginning of all of Russiagate. Because of that, everyone under President Obama is going to blame him. James Clapper, John Brennan, Comey, they're all going to say, hey, we took orders from the president. Who was the president? President Obama. They worked for President Obama. If they're getting indicted, they're going to say, hey, Russiagate wasn't my idea. It was the president's idea. So President Obama is almost certainly helping President Trump because, number one, he wants to circumvent any legal or criminal liability. Clapper and Brennan, Clapper's already on record as blaming President Obama. And so what do you think they're going to do? What do you think their defense is during the conspiracy statutes? So number one, President Obama wants to circumvent any criminal or legal liability. Number two, he'll take over the Democratic Party completely because the I'm with her crowd will all be indicted. Hillary, all of them. The indictments are coming for Clinton and Brennan almost certainly. But anyway, that's what I think. I think President Obama is actually helping President Trump, either, where to find the documents that he needs to find, whatever. Classified data that Brennan and others tried to hide. Anyway, let's continue.
What is that irrefutable evidence for our viewers tonight?
The woke are literally melting down over.
Yeah, Laura, as you were playing those clips of these people like Morning Joe seemingly befuddled, saying that by no account is any of this true, I would challenge them to see if they've actually read the documents, every single page of the documents that we've released over the last couple of weeks. If not, go to odni.gov, It's all right there for anyone to see. And those who go in and read this will see how President Obama directed that a National Security Council meeting be called to talk about Russia, that the report that came out of that meeting was filled with tasks that were delivered by James Clapper's assistant to John Brennan and to other elements of the intelligence community. John Brennan was the head of the CIA at the time, all saying per the president's direction, per the president's order. And very specifically, they were tasked to create an intelligence assessment that detailed how Moscow tried to influence the election, not if, but how. And this was the beginning of this manufactured intelligence assessment where they knowingly wrote things in this assessment that were false, and they knew they were false. They knew that they were basing it on discredited intelligence or documents like the Steele dossier that was politically motivated and that they knew was false. And this was how they came up with the Russia hoax that was then weaponized and used to try to delegitimize the president, President Trump, and to try to ultimately enact this years-long coup throughout his entire 4 years of his first administration.
And they further say that there's like this idea of saying that Obama is guilty of treason, that there's almost no chance that he's going to be charged or convicted of treason. So why even?
It's called the art of the deal or negotiating. I know that a lot of people say I'm nuts, okay, but they are friends. But they're friends, but business is business. Their mentality is, hey, this is business now. And so the potential criminal liability President Trump is publicizing by saying, hey, you committed treason, knowing very well that President Obama will not be indicted ever, but that Brennan and Clinton and Comey and others will. That's the issue. It's called negotiating. Hey, you face criminal liability, Mr. President. Help me out. I'm a fellow president. Okay, you stand to benefit by taking over the Democratic Party and circumventing legal or criminal liability.
Go there, and I'll pose that question to you.
The integrity of our democratic republic depends on the American people knowing the truth about what actually happened and seeking that accountability, bringing about that accountability. I don't know how else to characterize what happens when there is a sitting president of the United States, there is a director of the CIA, a director of national intelligence under President Obama, the head of the NSA, James Comey is the head of the FBI, all coming together, and this is documented in what we released, all coming together to create this lie with the intent of delegitimizing the duly elected president of the United States because the person they wanted to win actually lost. And the American people made their own choice in spite of everything that happened in that 2016 election, and they chose Donald Trump. This was not a one-off thing. This wasn't just, oh, well, they fudged the lines a little bit. They created a lie and propagated that lie in order to try to undermine the person that the American people chose to be our president and commander-in-chief.
To your point that you made earlier, that when they're losing on the facts, they demonize the messenger. And in this case, you're the messenger. And I think this is a big reason your opposition to the forever war syndrome, that's one reason. But then this was another reason they clearly did not want you.
It is a moral imperative to vote Trump and back Tulsi Gabbard and make America great again, Republicans, because you want to end forever wars. The greatest dilemma we face as human beings from the beginning of time, not just today. Well, today we have the potential of a nuclear annihilation, but is war, strife, countries or groups engaging in war. You want to limit that. You want an anti-war president. That's why you go from Bernie Sanders to Trump. I was the biggest Bernie Sanders booster on the internet, according to the Huffington Post in 2016. I was the unofficial scribe of Sanders' most hardcore voters, according to the Washington Post. It's embarrassing for both me and people who still support Bernie Sanders' movement, which, of course, right now is a bowel movement. It's pretty much reduced to nothing, just like the political party that cheated him. But anyway, the point is he was cheated. The Democrats cheated Bernie Sanders in 2016. They then covered up the greatest cybersecurity scandal of all time with top secret intel illegally transferred onto Clinton's servers, which is a fact, even Comey stated, and then lost. And then they lost the Supreme Court, which, of course, they knew they would lose if they cheated in a primary. So they did that to themselves. But they demand that the entire American populace simply succumb to their maniacal behavior and just accept it for what it is. But America is not the Democratic electorate. America will not accept primaries that are complete theatrical performances. So President Trump won. Well, the Comey letter was what really did it. Also, it wasn't Russia, because that was completely fabricated and made up. Clinton, even in the polls, was still had enough. Then Comey wrote the Comey letter. He should start a stationery store. He wrote the Comey letter, which stated, because under oath, Comey stated that Uma Abedin was forwarding classified data to Anthony Weiner. And imagine the Wiener laptop. You'd probably need a hazmat suit to even touch it. So that's what Comey said under oath. Then that's why he wrote the Comey letter, because classified data was literally being forwarded from Hillary Clinton's computers elsewhere. Literally forwarded, but Inspector Clouseau couldn't find intent. And so, Democrats lost. But again, the moral imperative is to stop wars. That's why you have how could you vote for Trump? How could you go from Bernie Sanders to Trump? It's like explaining physics to a house cat. People can't understand basic logic. You don't want endless wars. No endless wars. Endless wars are bad. That's why I had lifelong friends, beautiful human beings, who disowned me. I tried to explain. I don't want endless wars. It's like talking. It's like trying to teach quantum physics to a house cat. They don't even get it. They don't understand. So you cannot. So the moral imperative is not voting for either a never Trump Republican or a Democrat that is okay with invasions. That's why you had all of the invasions taking place under Biden. That's why Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld vote Democrat. Or that's why the never Trump Republicans still vote Democrat. They don't care about endless wars. That's how you go from the left to President Trump, because he's the moral imperative. You want to limit endless wars. You also want to make sure with tariffs that manufacturing is being brought back into the country. And no genius, it won't happen immediately, but you want to at least set the groundwork. 21% increase in prices during Biden, not one word about the inflation during Biden, 21% increase. Then Trump's tariffs. Oh, it's a tax. It's a tax. They don't care about taxes. I'll go ask Mamdani if he cares about taxes. Anyway, let's continue.
In your position. And to that point, Mark Warner, of course, Democrat senator from Virginia, wrote on X today, Tulsi Gabbard is a threat to our national security and should be fired. He's taking his orders pretty well, don't you think, Director?
Did you know that the Georgia Public
He has and continues to be a reliable soldier. And you're right there, Laura, to make that comparison, because these very same tactics they are using now are the same tactics that the warmongers of Washington have consistently used whenever anyone challenges them to say, hey, this does not serve the best interests of the American people. It does not make us more safe, secure, and free. So why are you doing this? Exposing these people for who they are. And once again, who is the deep state? What does it consist of? We're seeing this revealed in real time here. And it's important for the American people to pay attention and realize, like, hey, with the mainstream propaganda media, we got to pay attention. We got to use our common sense and recognize we should accept nothing they say at face value.
And how important is it to root out any remaining problems in these agencies, Director? Because we need our people to believe in the FBI, to believe in the CIA, to or get rid of them altogether. I mean, I hate to say that, or just completely defund a lot of these intelligence agencies. If we can't trust them, if they're going to subvert democracy and subvert our presidency, why are we funding them?
Well, this is, and I'll go back to that Mark Warner tweet that you put out saying that I'm a threat to national security. Why? Because I'm actually exposing the truth. As Director of National Intelligence, I'm doing the work to go and root out those deep state bad actors within the intelligence community, because our country's national security depends on it. The rule of law requires it. The integrity of our democratic republic requires that, rooting out the truth, telling the truth to the American people, and bringing about that accountability. So yes, it is essential across the board, not only to root out the individual bad actors, but to enact the kind of institutional reform to make it so that these kinds of things cannot be allowed to happen again.
Director.
So, ladies and gentlemen, go to H.A. Goodman's other channel right now. There'll be an upload on exactly why Clapper, or Brennan, in this case, will be indicted. arrested, indicted. Well, certainly indicted. If the indictments for Brennan and others are imminent, according to reports. Hit subscribe to this channel. We'll have a live stream probably around 6 or 7 p.m. Eastern. God bless you all. The blueprint for the indictment, the blueprint for the indictments of Brennan are very likely Bolton's 18-count indictment. And I explained that throughout this live stream. Thank you for an amazing live stream. To my super chat, thank you. God bless you all.